Let's take a quick inventory of where we're at with this bike project. So as you can see, I have the new tank mocked up on the frame. I have welded the new mounting tabs for the rear and widened the front ones to fit the wider frame. I have not drilled and tapped the mounting holes for this yet because I just want to be 100% sure that that's the final location I'm going to have it in. As you can see, we removed the rear fender, lights and all that stuff just unplugged, which was really nice and easy to take off. I will probably not use any of those parts, so I'll probably end up selling the whole back end as one piece. The next part that we're gonna do is I'll be cutting the frame to remove the back fender mount, and I'll probably cut it right above these so I can make a seat pan that will hide all the electronics. We've mounted the bars I plan on using. These are some TC Bros lane splitters, I think they're called. I had these on my last bike. They're awesome bars. I really like the look and the width of them. I haven't mounted this other stuff because I'm not sure if I'm going to paint those black or not. Yeah, so the next part will be, like I said, cutting this off and then starting to mock up a new rear fender. When I tear apart these bikes, I like to keep these old random pieces that I find on them in case I ever come up with a random use. These are some old mounting brackets, I believe, for the rear passenger pegs on a different bike. It's kind of got a weird shape to it, but I think I can bend it into making a rear fender mount for this. So I think this is going to work out pretty good. The hole's already the size I want. The spacing's about what I want. So all I need to do is I'll just heat this up, bend it back, and then figure out the measurements I'm going to need. So in this particular case, grab it. I don't know how much flame I have left in this, but this is just a regular propane torch you can get at the store. I'm just going to kind of heat it up along the line of where I intend to bend it. It's pretty cold out here, so this should help a little bit. So I got to think about this. I want to bend it this way towards me. I'll line these up as flat as I can so that I think it should roughly match the line I want. I always just take a crescent wrench, flatten it to it. We'll see how this goes. I'm a little worried that it's high, but I'm hoping that since it's in the clamp, yeah, see, I can already tell that's not working. So I need to get it down as close to the joint as I can to bend it correctly. But because of the shape, it's going to be a little awkward. So on this one, as you might be able to see, it's not quite bending the way I want. So do the other method that I use sometimes, which is to just hammer it down. There you go. Actually, you know what? I probably did that too far because I don't think I needed that to be flat. So the plan for this is to line up. I have the line that I want this to sit above. This would then slide in here and sit right like this. So what I was worried about is I did over bend it. I guess I could just sit it back in here and it really doesn't matter. I was gonna have it sit like this, but if it's like this, whatever. That'll actually be okay. The piece I do need to figure out is exactly when I mount this, because this is actually going to have nuts on it, I think. So as such, I need to account for that spacing, which I'll eventually put the nuts on here and then do that. So that when it mounts, it'll probably sit like this. But I think that'll work. See if I can find some nuts that are going to fit the bolts I have. As I was saying before, I always keep all the miscellaneous bolts and stuff that I don't end up using. I always have extra stuff when I pull apart these bikes. So I'm going to see if I have some nuts that might work. This looks like this might be a winner. So there's one. Let's see if I have another in here. But trying to get it out, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I took these bolts off of the foot pegs. Look at that, boom. 2 nuts to mount it, perfect. All right, so as you can see, I have this polished up down to the bare steel to get rid of the galvanizing coat. Same with these, polished down the sides. I'm just going to at first give these a location by hand and then tack them into place. Just eyeballing it, not really measuring it. I have this line which I can align with the bottom of this bracket. Get this centered best as I can. Looks pretty good. Now that I have these tacks in, go ahead and take the bracket off. Lose a washer under my work stand. So far, I have this all cleaned up. I'm gonna need to grind this really quick to clean up the spot for welding. Careful not to hit the tire because that would be a bummer. Now, as you'll see, what most people do, just throw a cut off piece of old chain, use that as your gap between your tire and your fender. See how this is going to align. Hopefully I have enough space, which is where I was kind of getting a little worried. So this is what I was worried about. It's a little tight down here. So if I flatten this, gosh, it's so close. I wonder if I drop this in there, if I can actually get it through. So, yeesh. My spacing's pretty tight, but I don't really want to cut out a space for this. I think I'm honestly just gonna say it's good enough. I'm gonna mount it anyway, because my option is, if I can't fit this through here, the mounting's gonna stay the same. I'm gonna end up having to either A, cut out little holes for this bar to sit in, or I might just cut the fender off right here so it just stops at this bar, at the swing arm. Yeah, that's like I said, it's close. I mean, it's, if anything, off by just a fraction of an inch. So I'm gonna go ahead, put this back down. This will let me know exactly how I need to push this. Make sure it's centered. I'll flatten it down. Awesome. I think that'll work. Now that I have the rear fender, for the most part, mounted up here, I'm going to check to make a strut. Go ahead and put this back in here real quick, just to get a rough idea of the gap. So, I want this to be really tight on here. Actually, might need to redo this. What I decided to do was to take it a 90-degree angle off of the swing arm. This is just a 1-inch piece of steel bar that you can get at Home Depot or wherever, your local hardware store. So I first marked on the swing arm where I got to angle it in, and then up here, I pull this down. I have the line marked with the edge. That's then going to have to rotate in to match it, which I think I'm pretty good, because I'm going to have it right on the sides rather than on top, so I'll have it mounted right here. That way it avoids the tire as much as possible, because this is a flat rear fender, so you're going to have way more gap on this edge. So yeah, as you can see, hopefully lines up right here. This is bent. So how I typically do that, I usually just take my line, stick it in the vise, clamp it down, make sure it's at the exact angle I need, then heat it up with a propane torch for however long. I usually go a little longer than that. And I'll just take the hammer and I'll tap it down in this direction slowly so that it bends right on that line. Because if you were to just try to grab up high, it might start just doing a round bend throughout this whole piece. With the fender in place, tank in place, and these extra pieces cut off, I'm gonna go ahead and start on the seat pan. I went back and forth on whether or not I want to do this out of metal or fiberglass. I decided to do steel because I'm gonna make this top cover and the seat pan one unit. So I want it to be really sturdy and also easy to mount and take off. So what I'm first gonna do is I'm gonna start off by templating it on this cardboard. So I already have my lines roughly drawn out. As far as distance, I want it to go right up to the edge of the tank. So this is the edge of roughly this little bump over here, and then the sides. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut and score this. So my plan here, now that I think about it, I actually should have broke this like this. So I think I'm gonna make it like this. So what I may have is a hook that comes off the bottom of this that's gonna attach somewhere around here. These go up here, and then here you'll have angled sides down to the corner. So this will kind of be a nice rounded piece. Or I shouldn't say rounded piece, but angled off. So now I'll go ahead and do these other pieces. So I think my geometry teacher wouldn't have been super happy with me trying to figure this out, because it was breaking my brain. I didn't think about I need to go here all the way to the end, then cut across so that I have my last 3D pitch. Thought this was going to be easier than doing a fiberglass pan. Turned out to be just as annoying. This will be a little off once I translate it to steel, since it's so much thinner, but this should be at least the rough idea. I'll cut each piece a bit big when I transfer it to steel, so that way I can grind back when I template it. But that should be how it's going to look. All right, so we got this all mocked up. I checked all the corners to make sure they worked the way I needed them to. I've gone through now and grinded the surface of the steel to make sure I have a good clean edge. This is actually the other side, but then we'll go ahead and tack these in place and weld her up. Take a look. That's going to be pretty good. Now, that side's tacked, the other side should be a little easier. Look, all tacked up. It's on here perfectly. solid. I'll go through and try to start finishing this out as best as I can, which, as we all know, is not my strong suit. Now that the seat pan's mostly done, I'm trying to decide what I want to do for the backrest. I haven't finished cleaning this up because I'll do that after I put this in. I don't want it to be a huge backrest, but by the same token, I don't want to feel like I'm sliding off the back. So what ends up being the backrest will actually only be from here up if I left it like this. So I think I might actually make it a little bit taller, maybe like about an extra inch. And that way, once the foam comes up, it'll probably come up to here, and then you'll have this above the foam. So that's the big piece to also think about is, like I've done it in the past where I forget to include the fact that the foam's gonna be around 2 inches thick, maybe 2.5. And then it just basically wipes out this much. So this is all you have sticking up from the seat. Whereas I think I actually almost want this part to be on top of the seat. So I think what I'm gonna do is maybe add that full 1 or 2 inches on, and then cut and mount the backrest. Now that I have this template carved out, I think I am gonna go ahead and add the 2 inches roughly up. I only do half the side, so I initially drew it out on the board, lined it up, but then I cut it in half. That way I can mirror it and I have a perfectly symmetrical backrest. Because if I just hand draw it and put it out there, it's gonna end up looking kind of weird. My initial plan was to use this as the seat pan as a one-piece top. And I was trying to engineer it in a way that I knew that I could upholster it later on. I forgot one major piece of that though, which is that if I was going to wrap down at an angle and go around, this would need to match that same flow up onto the seat, which I don't think I'm gonna do because it would end up being too narrow up top. So what I've decided to do instead is I went ahead and made the mounts. This actually uses the old tank mount, so that works really good. I don't have to worry about how I was gonna attach that to the bike anymore. I'm gonna end up adding some braces on the back side of this. It'll be a lot easier now because I don't have to worry about having room to be able to wrap the upholstery. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna use Kydex, I think, for this, which is the like heat moldable plastic. I've never used it for a seat pan. I've used it for like side plates, which works really well. But since this is already gonna be structural, it's literally just to hold the foam in place. So I think that'll work really well on top of this pan. So what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and add some bracing to strengthen up the backrest and go from there. Oh, one other piece. I was initially going to use these size bolts for each spot, but after I drilled the holes, I realized that because this actually cuts in on the backside of the frame, there wasn't enough room to actually drill and tap. So I'm just gonna use these same 5mm nuts like I use for the struts and just add some washers and it'll be fine. It's not like it really needs to be held on that much. It'll be more than enough to hold it in place.
In the next part of the build, I will tackle doing the seat pan, the cushion, the cover, and then a lot of the accessory installs. So thank you for watching up to this point, and be sure to subscribe and check back for that next installment.